Hi, everyone, and welcome to JSA TV, where we're coming to you today live from the floor of PTC 2026 here in beautiful Waikiki, Hawaii. I'm Barb Mitchell, and I'm pleased to be joined today by Paul Quigley, who's the president for Airsys Cooling Technologies, Inc. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me, Barb. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I know we're both enjoying Hawaii quite a bit.
Yeah.
And it's great to be on your show. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, so happy to hear from you and happy to hear a little bit more about Airsys. I know, you've probably been so busy this week already. It's only Monday, but it feels like, so
Right,
much has
right.
happened. As you've been talking to people about your technologies, tell us a little bit about how you're describing Airsys to folks.
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about both. Airsys is an amazing company. I'm so pleased to be a part of it and the growth of Airsys. It is truly an American innovation story, and it kind of dates back to the actual immigrants that came here. So we are doing a ribbon cutting on a brand new 250,000 square foot factory in South Carolina on May 13th. And it all started with the dream of an immigrant who has been here, been trying to create everything, and it's a dream come true for him. So we're all just absolutely thrilled to be a part of this. It's
Yeah,
wonderful.
that's fantastic. And we had the opportunity to chat a little bit earlier, and I'm so
Yeah.
excited to share some of your wisdom. But let's start by talking just a little bit about just give us some context around how advanced cooling systems can really solve for some of the challenges that are facing the industry.
So I was on a panel earlier. This was yesterday, and with some of the smartest people I've ever been around. The president of Castrol was on there.
Yeah.
The president of Liquid Stack was on there. Just some really intelligent people. But afterwards, I think one of the most important comments that I heard back was, "Thanks for breaking down the difference in liquid cooling." So I'll tell you, and I'll just kind of give you a quick metaphor on this because I think it's really important. Everybody hears about liquid cooling, but they think why? What's the difference? And so, Barbara, here's an example, if you'll allow me. If I were to put you in a room at 74 degrees, right?
Yeah.
You would probably say, "Hey, this is comfortable. I can spend the rest of my life here," and you could, and you'd be happy, right? Um, However, if you were to go into a large tank or vat of 74-degree water, within 10 hours, you would start to show signs of hypothermia, and within 20 hours, you'd be hospitalized. The reason we go through that analogy is to show you the difference in the transference of heat. So our entire job in the data centers is really transfer heat. That's our job. Get it out of the chips, get it out of the data center, and do something with it.
Yeah.
And I think people understand better when you can give them that metaphor that just says, okay, here's how you can really relate to that in person and understand the importance of why everybody's talking about liquid heat and why it's so
Yeah.
important to us. The density of these GPUs is growing every single day. I was listening to Bill, who's from PTC, and he was talking about within 1 year, chips are outdated, and we have to stop that. And when they're outdated, the new ones are creating much, much more heat because of the significance in density. So we keep going after more data and more intelligence and not paying quite enough attention to watts and the heats that created.
Right.
So that demand and density is really outdating data centers that are maybe only 2 years old. They're considered stranded or legacy, and I hate those terms because they're very, very useful.
Yeah, that's interesting when you talk about that. I mean, it's such a big topic right now, just in terms of the rapid growth. I mean, we've been hearing it for years, but it just keeps accelerating faster and faster, and the demands on these workloads and need for capacity is so much greater than ever before. How can these new cooling solutions help with that?
Well, first of all, I guess there are two parts of the soul of the data center. One is energy. You have to have energy to do any of this. And the second is getting rid of the energy, getting rid of the heat. So that's cooling.
Right.
Those are the two things that won't change. So eventually chips will be commoditized. The assets inside will be commoditized more. But those are the two things that always will have to be paid attention to. So even when you move from GPUs to the new TPUs in 3 years, when you talk about the quantum data centers, things like that, it still will always involve energy and moving energy. So the advancements in technology, we have some amazing technologies coming out that we're actually launching the second quarter. So getting back to liquid cooling, you've heard of the immersion liquid cooling, but the data center guys have kind of said, well, we're not gonna sink our servers in fluid. We're simply not going to do it. We're not going to put that kind of weight into our structures, and we're not going to put that kind of risk to have vats of fluid, which could potentially leak and things like that. But they love the technology. So the evolution of that, and we owe it to the immersion technology to say this has evolved. It's not a new technology, it's an evolution of the immersion. We actually use spray cooling. So in a very small confined space now, we can spray. So it's the difference between sitting in a tub or standing in a shower, right?
Right.
It's the efficiency of the water going through there. And with the spray, we do a direct spray onto the server, and we can, with 20% of the fluid that's used in an immersion data center, we can increase the efficiency by almost 3x through that technology.
Yeah.
Then, as we increase the heat load that we're transferring out, we can do amazing things with that hot water too. So if we ever get a chance to talk about sustainability, that's something I'm really passionate about.
I'd love to talk about sustainability. Let's talk about that now. I mean, it's perfect segue. And then just sort of thinking about over the, you talked about innovation that needs to stay ahead. It can't be, things can be outdated within a year. I mean, how can people be thinking about what matters not just today, but 3 years from now? And I feel like sustainability is a part of that story.
Well, it absolutely has to be.
Yeah.
So the laws of conservation with physics say that electricity can neither be created nor destroyed, right? And we've always known matter can neither be created nor destroyed. And back in the 1950s, they added energy to that too. Well, let's take that back for a moment. Let's look at energy that we're using right back. And theoretically, then we say all energy on the earth comes from the sun, right? But where did the sun get that energy?
Yeah.
So the sun is using fusion to provide energy to us. But the sun was created by, I'll just stick with science for this. We won't get into religious conversations. But science says 18 billion years ago was the Big Bang, which is what created the sun. Yeah. And then the sun through fusion is creating all of the photons and the light that gives the energy to the earth. 100%, whether it's wind, solar, or fossil fuel. Now, the interesting thing with fossil fuel is if you look at the duration between when I have a tree absorbing the sunlight and then turning that into its own energy, to the point that we can now harvest that fossil fuel and turn that into useful energy, that time period is 50 million years. Yeah. From when that tree was alive to decaying and then to when it becomes harvestable as coal or whatever that is. That's a 50 million year period. So as we're chasing data centers and we're chasing megawatts and we're chasing gigawatts and we're excited about that, it's time for us to think about when we take that cat video and we just remember, energy can't be created or destroyed, so it's transferred to something else that's no longer useful to us. Yeah. So when we're doing these things, it's important that it's incumbent upon us to be stewards of this also. Yeah. And I think it really takes hold at that point. So, relaying that, sorry about the long story.
No, I love that
it's
story.
Interesting, right?
It is absolutely.
Let's talk sustainability.
Okay.
You and I are at the same beautiful hotel, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, PTC, for this. This is a wonderful experience. You have a balcony. I would encourage you, when you go back to your room, go out on the balcony and look at all of the different hotel complexes there, right?
Yeah.
So I'll give you a statistic. At a resort, the average guest, each guest at a resort uses on average 420 gallons of hot water every day.
Wow.
Now that's absurd. You don't shower that long. I don't shower that long. I don't think you do either. But that takes into account the laundry, the restaurants, the sterilization of things, all of that. So imagine we're running a boiler right now using a lot of gas and electricity to create all of that hot water that all goes into the atmosphere. It's just spent. It's gone, right? Yeah. Again, we go back to energy.
Yeah.
When you go out on your balcony, I'd like you to look out and look at all the flat roofs out there. We could so easily put a micro data center on each one of those roofs, take the heat that we're generating through producing all of that data, all of that compute and AI, and just transfer that into hot water. We could replace at least 30% of all of the usage of the boiler and the natural gas, right? Yep. And we can supply all the data, not just that the hotel needs, but the local community, the citizens. We can start providing fast, high-speed data that easily. So it's that simple for us to make that jump. We have the technology. It's not just Airsys. Plenty of companies know how to do this, to transfer the heat from the data into something usable. Right. And it's time that we do that. Yeah. And these are the things that the industry is thinking about, hopefully actioning. It's really, I love the way you tell that story. I feel like I want to capture that and share it with everyone. Well, hopefully we're doing that right now. And it puts it into real context, I think. I'm very passionate about it because I think once you realize that, once I was sitting at home on a Saturday and I went through that scenario in my head where I thought, well, where did the energy come from? And I went all the way back 18 billion years. And I will admit, by the way, I used AI for part of that, so
Right.
I'm the one burning the
So,
energy
it took a
just to
little
come up with
energy
the
to
energy
do that,
story.
yeah.
But I think it's so important, and it drives me now in a different direction.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I go
Yeah.
outside and I look at the trees and I look at the sunshine and I think, oh my gosh, yeah, well, 50 million years from now, this could be data that we're going to use. And I think, well, that's just unbelievable. But that's what it is.
Yeah.
And then I look at the cooling systems for the data centers and I see them blowing all the hot air up into the atmosphere. Or they're using water to go through the coils to cool all that. We're wasting the water. And I think all we have to do is finish
There's
the
a different
job
way.
that we are smart enough to do.
Right.
And if
Yeah.
AI were to design AI, it would not allow us to do the things that we're
Right.
doing. So it's time for us to kind of catch up with ourselves, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate that.
Well, thanks for the time to do it. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I hope you enjoy the rest of your week here at PTC, and it's fruitful, and you have lots of opportunities to share that story, that wisdom with a lot more people.
Thanks so much, Barb.
this
I
week.
appreciate your time.
Yeah. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in today to JSA TV, where we continue to come to you live from the floor of PTC 2026. Until next time.